The terrace railing hit my spine first, then the wind, then nothing at all. 10 floors above the city lights, I went over the edge. The last thing I saw was Gichon standing 6 feet away, his face blank, his hands in his pockets like he was watching a stranger fall instead of the man he married 2 hours ago. I didn't scream because there wasn't time. The air ripped past my ears, my stomach lurching into my throat as the world tilted and city lights spun into streaks of gold and white. I reached for something, anything, but my fingers only caught empty air. The pavement rushed up to meet me. Bang! Everything shattered at once. My ribs, my spine, the breath in my lungs. Pain exploded through my chest, sharp and hot, then faded into something cold and wet and heavy. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't feel anything below my neck. Blood pooled warm beneath me, spreading across the concrete like spilled wine. My heartbeat slowed with each passing second. Thump, 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 then silence. The last-minute memories came in fragments, broken glass cutting through the darkness. The reception hall with its crystal chandeliers and soft music, champagne glasses clinking, as guests celebrated what they thought was the beginning of my happily ever after. I'd been smiling because I actually thought tonight was the start of something beautiful. I thought Gichon loved me, that his family had finally accepted me despite everything. Despite the fact that I was an Omega who grew up in a one-bedroom apartment and worked as a home care aide for $31,000 a year. I thought I'd finally belong somewhere. Then the video started playing. It appeared on the massive screen behind the head table, interrupting the toasts and turning the entire room silent. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at as confusion rippled through the crowd and guests turned toward the screen. Then I saw me, or someone who looked exactly like me. The video showed an Omega in a hotel room, half-dressed and tangled in sheets with another man. The Omega's face was clear, too clear, showing my face, my hair, my body. But it wasn't me. I'd never been in that room, never touched that man, never betrayed Gichon. But no one cared about the truth. The whispers started immediately, spreading like poison through the reception hall. "Is that him?" someone gasped. "Oh my God," another voice whispered. The word disgusting floated from somewhere in the back, and I stood frozen at the head table, my champagne glass trembling in my hand as my throat closed and my pulse hammered in my ears. I tried to speak, tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come. Gichon turned toward me slowly, his expression like ice cutting through my chest. "Wafani Gichon," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the murmurs. "That's not... Don't!" His voice cut through the room, sharp and final enough to silence every conversation. "Don't lie to me in front of everyone." "I'm not lying." My voice cracked as desperation clawed up my throat. "I've never seen that video before. I don't know where it came from. Please, you have to believe me." "Believe you?" He laughed, the sound bitter and cold enough to freeze the air between us. "Oh, you expect me to believe you when the evidence is right there for everyone to see?" The guests stared at me like I was something dirty they'd accidentally touched. My cheeks burned with shame as my hands shook and I felt completely exposed, stripped bare in front of hundreds of people who were supposed to be celebrating us. "Gichon, please." "You're a liar," he said, standing so abruptly that his chair scraped against the marble floor. "You're a cheat, Chun, and you're not my mate." The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. Someone in the crowd muttered, "Typical Omega," and another voice whispered, "I knew he was too good to be true." Laughter bubbled up from the back tables, cruel and mocking, wrapping around me like chains I couldn't break. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except run. I turned and fled through the reception hall. I passed the floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected a broken version of myself. White suit wrinkled, face pale, eyes red and swollen. I shoved open the terrace doors and stumbled outside into the cold night air, gripping the railing as the wind bit at my skin and the city stretched out below like a sea of indifferent lights. Tears streamed down my face as I gasped for breath, my entire body shaking with humiliation and confusion, and a pain so deep I couldn't name it. I didn't hear her approach until she spoke. "Pathetic." I turned to find Ma Young-suk No standing in the doorway, her silk gown shimmering under the terrace lights like she was attending a performance instead of destroying someone's life. Geechun's mother, the woman who had smiled at me during the ceremony and told me I looked lovely, now looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her expensive shoe. "You actually thought you could marry into this family," she said softly, in her voice carrying a cruelty that made my skin crawl. "You actually believed my son would choose you?" "I didn't do anything," I choked out, my voice breaking. "That video, it's fake. It has to be." "Of course it's fake." She smiled and the expression was so cold it stopped my heart. "I had it made." The ground dropped out from under me, leaving me weightless and falling even though I was still standing. "You..." "What?" "You were never supposed to make it this far, Ihyeon." She stepped closer, her heels clicking against the stone like a countdown. "You were a mistake, a charity case my son felt sorry for. But I won't let you ruin this family's name." "Gi-chan..." "Gi-chan will do what I tell him," she interrupted, her voice hardening into something sharp enough to cut. "And I'm telling him to forget you." Footsteps echoed behind her, and Woo Cheol-jin emerged from the shadows. Gi-chan's childhood friend, his best man. The beta who'd shaken my hand earlier and congratulated me with what I thought was genuine warmth. Now he looked at me like I was already dead, his expression empty of anything resembling mercy. "Make it quick," Myung-suk said, turning away like she couldn't be bothered to watch. Woo-cheol moved fast, faster than I could process. His hands slammed into my chest with enough force to knock the air from my lungs, and I stumbled backward as the railing hit my spine. For one horrible second, and I thought I could catch myself, thought I could grab onto something and pull myself back to safety, but then I was falling. My heart stopped beating somewhere between the 8th and 7th floors. I felt it happen. One moment, the frantic thump, thump, thump in my chest, and the next, nothing but cold silence spreading through my veins. The pavement rose up to meet me, and then darkness swallowed everything whole. Voices cut through the void, distant and urgent. "Ah, he's not breathing!" someone shouted. "Do it now!" Another voice commanded, rough with desperation, hands pressed against my chest, followed by pressure and heat, and then pain so sharp it tore me back from whatever edge I'd been teetering on. Something sank into my skin just above my heart, teeth breaking through muscle and bone, claiming something I didn't know I had left to give. My body convulsed violently, my lungs screaming as air rushed back in with a choking gasp. My heart beat once, twice, and then again in a rhythm that felt wrong, like it belonged to someone else. I woke to the scent of leather and night-blooming jasmine, my eyelids heavy and my body feeling like it had been shattered and poorly reassembled by hands that didn't quite know what they were doing. Every breath hurt, every heartbeat ached, but I was breathing and my heart was beating, and that meant I was alive. Slowly, I forced my eyes open. The room was unfamiliar, dark and warm and expensive in a way that made my chest tighten with unease. Standing over me were two men I'd seen only once before, at the funeral of the grandmother I'd cared for during her final months. Raon and Sungjai Chai, the twin CEOs who owned half the city and commanded respect with nothing more than their presence. Raon's sharp eyes met mine, cold and calculating in a way that made me want to shrink into the mattress. Sungjai's jaw was tight, his hands clenched at his sides like he was fighting the urge to reach for me, and I felt it, the burn just above my heart, where something had torn into me and left a mark I didn't understand. I looked down at my bare chest, bandaged but still pulsing with heat that didn't belong to me. Beneath the gauze, I could feel it, a bond I never asked for, never wanted, never consented to. One of them leaned closer, his scent wrapping around me like a claim I couldn't escape. And I smelled it, my own scent, mixed with theirs. The realization hit me like a second fall, stealing the air from my lungs and making my head spin. I pressed myself harder against the headboard, ignoring the way my ribs screamed in protest, desperate to put distance between us even though I knew it was useless. "What did you do?" My voice came out raw and broken, barely more than a whisper. Round straightened, his sharp eyes never leaving my face as he studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "'Cause we saved your life," he said simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "I didn't ask you to. Why would you mark me?" The words tore out of me, fueled by panic and confusion, and a fear so deep it made my hands shake. "I don't even know you." "You know us well enough," Shungjai said quietly, his voice carrying an edge that made me look at him. "You spent 3 months caring for our grandmother before she died. You held her hand when the nurses said she had hours left. Something you read to her when she couldn't sleep." The memory surfaced unbidden. An elderly woman with kind eyes and a soft smile, her grip surprisingly strong even as her body failed. She'd told me stories about her grandsons, the twin boys who built an empire from nothing and carried the weight of their family legacy on their shoulders. I'd listened because it made her happy, not because I ever expected to meet them. "That doesn't give you the right to—" I gestured helplessly at my chest, one at the mark burning beneath the bandages. "To do this? No, right?" Raon's laugh was harsh enough to make me flinch. "You were dead, Ihyeon. Your heart stopped beating. We brought you back." "Then you should have let me die." The words came out before I could stop them, and the moment they left my mouth, the temperature in the room dropped. Seungjae moved so fast I barely saw him coming. 1 second he was standing by the window, the next he was right in front of me. His hands braced on either side of my body as he leaned in close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "Do you have any idea what we gave up to pull you back from death?" His voice was low and dangerous, vibrating with barely controlled anger. I shook my head, my throat too tight to speak. "There's a myth in our world," Round said, his tone cold and measured as he stepped closer. "An alpha bond so forbidden that most people think it's just a story. If an Omega is dying, truly dying, with their heart already stopped, an alpha can mark them directly over the heart and pull them back. But it only works once in a lifetime, and it binds them permanently." My stomach dropped as the weight of his words settled over me like ice water. "We used our one chance on you," Seungjae continued, his gaze never wavering from mine. "Huh, we sacrificed the possibility of ever finding our true mates because we couldn't stand there and watch you die on that pavement." The room spun as understanding crashed through me. They'd given up everything. Their future, their choice, their chance at a bond they actually wanted, for someone they barely knew. The guilt was immediate and suffocating, mixing with the anger and fear until I couldn't tell which emotion was stronger. "Why?" The question came out strangled and desperate. "Edu, why would you do that for me?" Neither of them answered right away, and the silence stretched between us like a chasm I didn't know how to cross. Finally, Round spoke, his voice quieter than before. "Because you mattered to someone who mattered to us," he said. "Our grandmother spent her last days talking about the kind Omega who made her laugh when she was too tired to smile." Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "And that doesn't mean you own me." "We don't own you," Round said, his tone softening just enough to make my chest ache. "But the bond is real whether you like it or not. You're connected to us now in ways you can't undo." "Then break it." My voice cracked as desperation bled through every word. "Find a way to break it and let me go back." "Back to what?" Seungjae's voice turned sharp again, cutting through my plea like glass. "Back to the people who pushed you off a building? Back to the man who watched you fall and didn't lift a finger to stop it?" "I can explain what happened," I insisted, even though the words sounded hollow. "I can tell the truth about the video, about his mother, about—" "Would you rather be dead?" Roan's question cut through the air like a blade, stopping me mid-sentence. "Is that what you want? Because we can arrange that. Right, we can drop you right back where we found you and let Mongsuk finish what she started." The cruelty in his words made me flinch, but beneath it, I heard something else. Something that sounded almost like hurt. They'd saved me, sacrificed everything for me, and I was throwing it back in their faces like it meant nothing. But I couldn't stop myself. The fear was too strong, the confusion too overwhelming. "Why were you even there?" I demanded, my voice rising despite the pain it caused in my chest. "How did you find me?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I didn't fully understand. Raon and Seungjae exchanged a look, something passing between them that I couldn't read. When Ron finally turned back to me, his expression was unreadable. We had our reasons, he said simply. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now, Seungjae added, his tone making it clear the subject was closed. The evasion made my skin crawl, planting seeds of suspicion and unease that I couldn't shake. They'd been there. They'd found me within minutes of the fall. They'd known exactly where to look and what to do. None of it made sense unless they'd been watching me, following me, waiting for something. But why? Before I could push further, Seungjae pulled out his phone and held it up so I could see the screen. And this is what you'd be going back to, he said quietly. The headline made my blood run cold. Omega vanishes on wedding night after cheating scandal. Below it was a photo of me from the reception, smiling like I didn't have a care in the world. The article painted me as a liar, a cheat, an Omega who ran away in shame after being caught in an affair. Social media comments flooded the bottom of the page, each one more vicious than the last. The video is everywhere, Rayan added, his voice flat. Not millions of views, thousands of shares. Your face is plastered across every gossip site and news outlet in the country. My hands shook as I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat. It's fake, I whispered. That video isn't real. We know, Round said quietly, but no one else does. What about the fall? I asked, my voice barely audible. There has to be cameras, witnesses, something. We checked, Seungjae interrupted. No security cameras caught the moment you went over. Worse, the terrace has a blind spot. Only your blood was found at the scene, along with your smashed phone. No body. You've been declared missing, not dead. So I'm a ghost, I whispered. Essentially, Round said, which means you have two choices. Walk out that door right now with no proof and no allies, or stay here and figure out how to make them pay for what they did. The word revenge hung in the air between us, sharp and tempting and terrifying all at once. I looked down at my trembling hands, at the bandages covering my chest, at the life that had been ripped away from me in a single night. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd believed in, was gone. I'll stay, I whispered, the words tasting like ash. I'll stay and I'll make them pay. The tears came then, silent and hot as they streamed down my face. I covered my mouth with my hand, trying to muffle the sobs, but it was useless. When I finally raised my head, my vision blurred. That's when I saw him, standing in the corner, wearing a white wedding suit identical to mine, his face pale and eyes hollow. Blood dripped from his mouth in steady streams. He was me. I pointed with a trembling hand. Do you see him too? I whispered, my voice shaking as the figure smiled at me with blood-stained teeth. Raon and Seungjae turned immediately, their eyes scanning the empty corner where I was pointing. Seungjae moved closer to the wall, his hand reaching out like he could touch whatever I was seeing, but his fingers met only air. Raon's sharp gaze swept the room once, twice, before settling back on me with an expression I couldn't quite read. There's nothing there, Raon said carefully, like he was talking to someone who might break at any moment. He's right there. My hand trembled as I pointed again, more insistently this time. He's wearing my wedding suit. There's blood on his mouth. He's looking right at me. Seungjae stepped between me and the corner, blocking my view, and when I tried to lean around him to see, the figure was gone. Just empty space where a moment ago there had been someone standing, smiling, bleeding. My breath caught in my throat as the realization crashed over me like cold water. I was hallucinating. He's gone, I whispered, lowering my hand slowly as shame burned hot in my chest. I saw him. I know I saw him. It's the trauma, Seungjae said quietly, his voice gentler than I'd heard it before. Your body went through something no one should survive. It's natural to... I'm not crazy. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I couldn't stop them. It felt real. He looked exactly like me. No one said you were crazy, Raon interrupted, while moving closer until he was standing at the edge of the bed. But you died tonight, Ihyeon. You came back from something that should have been permanent. Your mind is trying to process that. I wanted to argue, wanted to insist that what I'd seen wasn't just my broken brain trying to make sense of the impossible, but the words died in my throat. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there because some part of me couldn't accept that I was still breathing when I should have been dead. But then I heard it, a whisper. so faint I almost thought I'd imagined it, like an echo in an empty room. My own voice, but colder, somehow, sharper around the edges. I couldn't make out the words, just the tone, something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I didn't tell them. "We're calling a doctor," Brown said, Ish already pulling out his phone. "I want someone to check you for brain damage, internal bleeding, anything we might have missed." "I'm fine," I protested weakly, but even I didn't believe it. "You're not fine," Shungjai said firmly. "You fell 10 floors. The bond brought you back, but we need to make sure there aren't any complications." The doctor arrived within the hour, a quiet woman in her 50s who asked questions in a calm or professional voice while examining me with hands that were surprisingly gentle. She checked my pupils, tested my reflexes, ran her fingers along my ribs where I knew they should have been shattered. The twins stood by the window, watching with an intensity that made me nervous. After what felt like forever, she stepped back and pulled off her gloves. "He's completely healthy," she said, and the disbelief in her voice was evident. "No fractures, no internal bleeding, no signs of head trauma. His vitals are perfect. Better than perfect, actually." "How is that possible?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "I died. I felt my heart stop." "The mate bond," she said simply, like that explained everything. "It didn't just restart your heart. It restructured your entire body, pulled you back from death, and healed everything that was broken. I've heard of it happening before, but never seen it myself. You're medically a miracle." The twins exchanged a look that I couldn't interpret. Relief. Well, maybe, but underneath it was something else. Something that looked almost like concern. "Is there anything we should watch for?" Rowan asked. "Side effects? Complications? Anything?" The doctor shook her head slowly. "In theory, a bond this powerful should come with a price. Bonds always do. But I can't find anything wrong with him. He's healthy, whole, and alive. Whatever cost there is, it isn't physical." Her words settled over me like a weight I couldn't shake. Now, a bond this powerful had to come with a price. I could feel it in my bones. That gnawing certainty that something wasn't right even though the doctor said I was fine. But what was the price? What had I given up without knowing? The voice whispered again, so quiet I almost missed it. This time, I caught a single word. Soon. I shivered despite the warmth of the room. After the doctor left, the twins tried to get me to eat something, but I couldn't stomach more than a few bites. Everything felt surreal, like I was moving through a dream where nothing quite made sense. I was supposed to be dead. "You need to rest," Shungjai said finally, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Your body might be healed, but you've been through hell." I didn't have the energy to disagree. The exhaustion hit me all at once, dragging me down like hands pulling me underwater. I let them help me lie back against the pillows, let them adjust the blankets around me. Neil let them turn off the lights until the room was dark except for the glow of the city through the windows. "We'll be right outside if you need anything," Round said from the doorway. I nodded, already feeling sleep pulling at the edges of my consciousness. The door clicked shut and I was alone. That's when everything changed. I felt it the moment I closed my eyes. A shift, like something sliding into place that had been waiting just beneath the surface. The mark above my heart flared hot, so intense it stole the breath from my lungs. My vision sharpened even though my eyes were closed, colors bleeding brighter behind my eyelids, edges cutting clearer. And then I heard the voice again, but this time it wasn't a whisper. "Let me handle this," it said, calm and cold and undeniably mine. I tried to answer, tried to push back against whatever was happening, but my body wouldn't respond. It was like being trapped behind glass, watching myself from a distance I couldn't cross. My eyes opened, but I wasn't the one controlling them. My hands moved, pushing back the blankets, swinging my legs over the side of the bed, but they weren't following my commands. "Rest," the voice said again, and this time I understood. This time I knew exactly what was happening. I wasn't alone in my own head anymore. My body stood, moving with a confidence I didn't feel, and walked across the room to where they'd left my things in a corner. The wedding suit was there, folded neatly despite the blood staining the white fabric. My hands, not my hands, but the hands I was trapped inside, picked it up, and held it against the light. Then I walked to the mirror. The reflection staring back at me was exactly like the figure I'd seen in the corner earlier. Pale skin, hollow eyes, blood-stained suit hanging perfectly despite everything it had been through. I looked dead. I looked dangerous. I looked exactly like what I'd become. "Oh, sleep now," the voice whispered inside my head, and I felt myself being pushed down, down, down into darkness. "Let me introduce myself. I am Blaze, your other half, and I'll take care of everything from now on." I tried to scream, tried to claw my way back to the surface, but it was useless. I was nothing but a passenger now, watching helplessly as my own body moved toward the door. The penthouse was quiet. The twins were somewhere else, trusting me to rest, trusting me to stay put. They had no idea what was walking out of that room. I tried to scream, tried to take back control, but Blaze was already gone, and I was nothing but a passenger in my own body. The city stretched out below as he moved through the streets with a confidence I'd never possessed. My steps, his steps, sure and silent as he navigated toward the address burned into my memory. Gichon's penthouse. The place where he'd probably celebrated my disappearance with champagne and lies. My hands didn't shake under Blaze's control. My heart didn't race. Everything inside me was cold and focused, like a blade being drawn from its sheath. I wanted to stop this. Even wanted to turn around and go back before something irreversible happened, but I couldn't even move my own fingers. I was trapped behind glass, watching Blaze walk my body into darkness. The elevator ride felt like falling in reverse, my stomach lurching with every floor that passed. I could feel Blaze's anticipation humming beneath my skin, electric and eager. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't uncertain. He knew exactly what he was going to do. The penthouse door was unlocked. Careless. Blaze stepped inside, the bloodied wedding suit rustling softly as he moved through the darkened living room toward the bedroom where light spilled through a half-open door. Music played low, something sensual and expensive that made my skin crawl. Voices murmured, followed by laughter that turned my blood to ice. He pushed the door open. Gichon was in bed with a woman I didn't recognize, their bodies tangled in silk sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to. They were too occupied to notice us at first, too lost in each other to sense the danger standing in the doorway. Then Gichon looked up. His face went white. The woman screamed, scrambling to cover herself as Gichon stared at my face like he was seeing a ghost clawing its way out of hell. Maybe he was. "Ihyeon?" His voice cracked on my name, disbelief and terror bleeding through every syllable. You can't be alive?" Blaze said, and the voice was mine but wrong, a colder than I'd ever sounded. "Disappointed? How did you?" Gichon pushed himself up against the headboard, his hands shaking as he reached for something on the nightstand. A phone, maybe, or a weapon. "You fell. I saw you fall." "You watched me fall," Blaze corrected, taking a step closer. The woman was still screaming, but the sound barely seemed to register with him. All he could see was Gichon's face, the fear painting itself across his features, like guilt finally catching up. "You stood there and did nothing while your mother's lackey pushed me off that terrace. I didn't know she was going to." His excuse died as Blaze moved faster than Gichon could track, crossing the room in seconds and grabbing him by the throat before he could finish the lie. The strength surprised even me. I wasn't supposed to be this strong, wasn't supposed to be able to lift a grown alpha off the bed with one hand. But Blaze didn't hesitate. He slammed Gichon against the wall hard enough to crack the plaster, and I felt the impact vibrate through my bones, even though I wasn't the one controlling the movement. "Stop," I tried to say, tried to force the words through lips that wouldn't obey me. "Please stop." But Blaze ignored me completely. "Don't lie to me," he said quietly, his grip tightening until Gichon's face turned red. "You knew exactly what she planned. You let it happen because you're a coward who couldn't even break off an engagement without murdering someone. Please." Gichon clawed at my hand, desperate and pathetic. "I'm sorry, I didn't want to hurt you. My mother, she said it was the only way." "The only way to what?" Blaze threw him across the room, and I watched with detached horror as Gichon crashed into the dresser. "To protect your precious reputation? To keep your family name clean? The woman finally stopped screaming and ran, her footsteps echoing down the hallway as she fled. Smart. She should have left sooner. Gichon tried to get up, tried to fight back like he thought he had a chance, but every move he made was predictable and weak. Blaze caught his fist mid-swing and twisted, and I felt bones crack under my fingers, even though I wasn't the one applying pressure. Gichon's scream tore through the room, and I wanted to cover my ears, wanted to turn away, but I was forced to witness every second. "Hey, I'm here to take back what was stolen," Blaze said, forcing Gichon down onto his knees. "Starting with your life." "You can't," Gichon gasped through the pain, blood dripping from his split lip. "You're an Omega. You can't be this strong. What are you?" Blaze smiled, and I felt the expression pull at my face like wearing a mask that didn't quite fit. "I'm what you created when you pushed me off that building." He dragged Gichon to the desk in the corner, so shoving paper and a pen into his trembling hands. "Right," Blaze commanded, and the authority in my voice was nothing I'd ever possessed. "Your suicide note. Confess everything. The fake video. Your mother's plan. The push. All of it." "No!" Gichon's defiance was laughable, a spark trying to fight against a wildfire. "I won't." Blaze grabbed his hand and pressed it flat against the desk, then slammed my fist down on his fingers. The crack was sickening. Gichon's scream was worse. Right," Blaze repeated, "or I'll break every bone in your body before I kill you anyway." Gichon wrote. His handwriting was shaky, barely legible through the tears and blood. But it was enough. A confession in his own words, admitting to everything he'd done, everything his family had orchestrated. When he finished, Blaze took the paper and folded it carefully, tucking it into my jacket. Then he grabbed a handful of Gichon's hair and produced a knife I didn't know he'd taken, cutting through the strands with precision. Gichon whimpered but didn't fight anymore. He knew what was coming. "Stand up," Blaze said, pulling him toward the terrace doors. "No," I screamed inside my own head, throwing everything I had against the wall, separating me from control. "Don't do this. Please don't do this." But Blaze didn't even pause. "Please." Gichon's voice broke completely, reduced to begging. "Please, I have money. I can pay you. I can make this right." "You can't make this right," Blaze said, opening the doors and letting the night air rush in. "But you can pay for it." The terrace was familiar. Different building, same height, same railing. Poetic almost. Blaze positioned Gichon at the edge, his body shaking so hard I could feel it through my grip on his collar. "Any last words?" he asked. Not because he cared, but because it felt like something that should be offered. "I'm sorry," Gichon whispered. "I'm so sorry." "So am I." Blaze pushed. Gichon screamed all the way down, the sound cutting through the night before ending abruptly in a distant, wet thud. Blaze looked over the edge just long enough to confirm he wasn't getting back up, then turned and walked away like he'd just finished taking out the trash. I tried to feel something, guilt, horror, satisfaction, but there was nothing, just cold emptiness where emotion should have been, sorrow and the terrible understanding that I just watched my own hands commit murder. The delivery was simple. Mong Suk-no's residence was only a few blocks away, and her security was just as inadequate as her son's had been. Blaze left the suicide note and the lock of Gichon's hair on her doorstep, arranged neatly like a gift, a message she couldn't ignore. "You're next." By the time he made it back to the twins' penthouse, dawn was threatening the horizon. Blaze opened the door and found them waiting. Raon and Shungjai stood in the living room, fully dressed despite the early hour, their eyes tracking my movement the moment he stepped inside. They saw the wedding suit, the blood still staining the white fabric, the way he moved with a confidence that didn't belong to the broken Omega they'd saved. "Where have you been?" Raon's voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the edge underneath. Blaze smiled, letting the door close softly behind us. "I couldn't sleep," he said smoothly, walking toward them with deliberate steps. "So I put this on to remember, to say goodbye to the person I used to be." "Goodbye?" Shungjae's eyes narrowed, his posture tense like he was ready to spring. "I don't want to be that person anymore," Blaze continued, moving closer until he was standing right in front of them. "The weak Omega who let people destroy him. I want something new, Something better. He reached up, now wrapping my arms around both of them before either could react, and pressed my lips to Raon's in a kiss that was claiming and hungry, and nothing like the frightened Omega they'd rescued from death. When he pulled back, Raon's eyes were wide with shock. Seungjae grabbed my shoulders, staring into my eyes with an intensity that should have made me nervous. "Who are you?" Raon whispered, his voice barely audible. Blaze just smiled. The twins didn't move, didn't speak, but I could feel the tension radiating off them like heat from a fire. Raon's jaw was tight, his sharp eyes tracking every movement Blaze made with my body. Seungjae's hands were clenched at his sides, his posture screaming caution even though he hadn't taken a step back yet. They knew something was wrong. They just couldn't prove it. Blaze moved closer again, reaching out to touch Raon's chest, my fingers trailing down the fabric of his shirt with deliberate sensuality. The movement was smooth, confident, nothing like the hesitant Omega they'd pulled back from death. I screamed inside my own head, begging him to stop, but he ignored me like I didn't exist. Raon caught my wrist before Blaze could go any further, his grip firm but careful. "Stop," he said quietly, his voice carrying an edge that made even Blaze pause. "Yeah, we don't know what's happening with you right now." "What's happening?" Blaze tilted my head and I felt the expression shift into something mocking. "I kissed you. I thought that was pretty clear." "That's not what I mean." Seungjae stepped forward, positioning himself between us and creating distance. "Something is different. You're different." "Maybe I finally grew a spine," Blaze said, pulling my wrist free from Raon's grip. Maybe I'm tired of being the weak Omega everyone walks over." "This isn't about being weak or strong," Raon said, his eyes never leaving my face. "This is about you acting like a completely different person." Blaze's expression hardened, the smile dropping away to reveal something colder underneath. "You don't like me like this?" he asked, and there was an edge to the question that made the air feel dangerous. "Then why did you show up at the wedding at exactly the right time? How did you know to be there?" The question hit its mark. Both twins tensed visibly, their faces shifting through surprise and guilt before they could hide it. Raon's eyes widened just a fraction, and Seungjae's shoulders went rigid like he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't. Seungjae started, then stopped, glancing at his brother. "You what?" Blaze pressed, taking a step closer. "Coincidence? Lucky timing? Or were you watching me?" The silence stretched between them, and heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, Raon spoke, his voice quieter than before. "We were watching you," he admitted, and the confession sounded like it cost him something. "We've been watching you for months." My heart would have stopped if I'd been in control of it. Months. They'd been following me, tracking me, observing me for months before the wedding, before the fall, before everything went wrong. "Why?" Blaze asked, though I suspected he already knew the answer. "Because we like you," Seungjae said, the words coming out rough and honest. "We've liked you since you started taking care of our grandmother. The way you treated her with kindness when everyone else saw her as a burden. The way you smiled even when you were exhausted. We couldn't stop thinking about you even though we saw you once. But given everything you've been through," Raon added, his expression softening slightly, "we want to help you get revenge first. And we want to do this the right way before we pursue anything else." Blaze laughed, and the sound was cold enough to make both twins flinch. "The right way?" he repeated, his voice dripping with mockery. "You mean legally? Through lawyers and courts and evidence that takes years to process? You want to wait for justice to maybe, possibly, eventually show up?" "Justice is the only way that lasts," Raon said firmly. "Justice is too slow," Blaze shot back. By the time your lawyers finish filing paperwork, Myung-suk will have destroyed every piece of evidence and bought off every witness. She'll walk away clean while I'm still waiting for someone to care that I was murdered." "You're alive," Seungjae pointed out. "You survived. That gives us leverage." "I survived because you forced a bond on me without my consent," Blaze interrupted, his tone sharp enough to cut. "Don't pretend you did it out of pure altruism. You wanted me, so you took me. Shitty, just like everyone else." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Both twins looked stricken, hurt flashing across their features before they could mask it. "That's not fair," Raon said quietly. "We saved your life." "And now you own me," Blaze countered. So forgive me if I don't trust your version of justice? Shungjai stepped forward, his expression hardening into something dangerous. Who are you? He demanded, his voice low and controlled. This isn't Ihyeon talking. With the Omega we know wouldn't say these things, wouldn't act like this. So who the hell are you? Blaze smiled again, but this time it didn't reach my eyes. I'm Ihyeon, he said simply. Just a version you didn't know existed. It was technically true. He was part of me, born from the same trauma, living in the same body. But he wasn't me. Not really. Before either twin could respond, Blaze turned and walked toward the bedroom, leaving them standing in the stunned silence. He closed the door behind us with a soft click, cutting off whatever they might have said next. Inside the room, Blaze moved to the bed and lay down, still wearing the bloodied wedding suit. I felt him settling in, felt the control he'd been exerting start to loosen like a grip being slowly released. Sleep now? He whispered inside my head, the same words he'd used before. You'll need your strength for what comes next. Then darkness swallowed me whole. Now I woke to sunlight burning through my eyelids and a headache so intense it felt like someone had driven a spike through my skull. My mouth was dry, my body aching in ways that didn't make sense. And when I tried to remember what happened after I fell asleep the previous night, there was nothing. Just a gap, a huge, terrifying gap where my memory should have been. I sat up slowly, clutching my head as the room spun around me. The last thing I remembered was the doctor telling me I was healthy, what did the twins leaving me to rest, closing my eyes and drifting off. Everything after that was blank, like someone had taken an eraser to the hours between then and now. Why was I wearing the wedding suit? I looked down at the bloodied white fabric, confusion mixing with rising panic. I'd taken this off before sleeping. I was sure I had. So why was I wearing it again? And why did my hands feel sore? My knuckles bruised like I'd hit something. The door opened. Raun and Shungjai walked in, their expressions unreadable as they stared at me. Raun was holding a tablet, and the tension in his shoulders made my stomach drop. You're awake, Shungjai said, his voice carefully neutral. What happened? I asked, my voice coming out hoarse and confused. I don't remember. There's a gap in my memory. Everything after falling asleep is just gone. The twins exchanged a look I couldn't interpret. Then Raun stepped forward and turned the tablet toward me, showing me the screen. The headline made my blood run cold. Heir to no fortune found dead in apparent suicide. Below it was a photo of Gichon's building, police tape blocking off the entrance. The article described how he'd been found on the pavement below his penthouse terrace, a suicide note left behind, confessing to orchestrating a scandal against his former fiancée. My hands started trembling as I stared at the words, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Gichon was dead. Gichon had jumped. Gichon had confessed. But something felt wrong about it. Something felt too convenient, too perfectly timed. When did this happen? I whispered, unable to look away from the screen. Last night, Raun said quietly. Around the same time you apparently couldn't sleep and decided to put on your wedding suit to say goodbye to your old self. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? You don't remember, Shungjai asked, his eyes searching my face for something. You don't remember coming back here wearing that suit? Telling us you wanted something new? No. The word came out panicked and desperate. I don't remember any of that. I swear, I went to sleep and then I woke up just now. There's nothing in between. The twins stared at me, and I could see the questions forming behind their eyes. The suspicion, the fear. Then Raun asked the question that made my world tilt sideways. Where were you last night? I stared at the headline, wiping my hands trembling as I tried to remember something. Anything, but there was nothing. Just emptiness where my memory should have been. I don't know, I whispered, the words coming out broken and desperate. I swear I don't know where I was. I don't remember leaving this room. I don't remember putting on this suit. There's just nothing. The twins stared at me with expressions I couldn't fully read. Concern mixed with suspicion, fear blending with something that looked almost like pity. Raun set the tablet down carefully on the nightstand, his movements deliberate and controlled. Yet you're telling us you have no memory of last night, he said slowly, like he was testing each word before speaking it. No memory of going out, Coming back? Talking to us about wanting something new? No. My voice cracked. Seungjae exchanged a look with his brother, and I saw something pass between them. Understanding, recognition. Blackouts, Seungjae said quietly. Personality changes. Violent behavior you don't remember. Memory gaps. What are you saying, I asked. Though part of me already knew. Part of me had known since I saw that figure in the corner wearing my face. We think the trauma of dying and coming back broke something inside you, Rayon said carefully. The bond brought your body back, but your mind couldn't handle what happened. So it split. The words hit me like a physical blow. Split. My mind had split into pieces, creating someone else to handle what I couldn't. No. I shook my head, denial rising up even though I knew it was useless. When that's not possible, I would know if there was someone else in my head. I would feel it. You heard a voice, Seungjae reminded me. You saw yourself in the corner. Those weren't hallucinations, Ihyeon. That was him, the part of you that's willing to do what you can't. I pressed my hands against my temples, trying to stop the panic spiraling through my chest. Did I kill him? The question came out barely audible. Did I kill Gichon? We don't know, Rayon said. But we're going to find out. They made calls, used resources I didn't know they had access to. Within an hour, they had security footage from every camera within a 3-block radius of Gichon's building, traffic cameras, doorbell cameras, everything. We watched them all. Nothing. No sign of me entering the building, leaving it, walking the streets nearby. It was like I'd been a ghost, moving through the city without leaving a trace. There's no footage, Seungjae said, frowning at the screen. Nothing showing you anywhere near his penthouse. What about fingerprints, I asked, grasping for anything that might prove I wasn't there. If I was in his apartment, there would be prints, DNA, something. Round made another call, speaking quietly to someone who apparently owed him a favor in the police department. When he hung up, his expression was troubled. No fingerprints, he said. No DNA evidence placing you at the scene. Whoever was there knew how to avoid leaving traces. For a moment, I felt relief wash over me. No evidence meant no proof, meant maybe I hadn't done it after all. Maybe the memory gap was just coincidence. Maybe Gichon really did kill himself out of guilt. Then the door burst open. Myung-suk No stood in the doorway, her face pale with rage and grief, her expensive dress wrinkled like she'd been awake all night. She was holding something in her hand, a folded piece of paper. The suicide note. "It was you," she hissed, her eyes locking onto me with pure hatred. "You're supposed to be dead." "How did you find this place?" Rayon demanded, stepping between us immediately. "I have resources," she spat, "and I'm not stupid." She shoved past Rayon, holding the note up like evidence in a trial. "Why did you deliver this to my doorstep?" she demanded, her voice shaking with fury. "Why did you leave my son's hair with it like some kind of sick trophy?" My stomach dropped. I didn't. Don't lie to me." She pulled out her phone, swiping to a video and shoving it in my face. "My security camera caught you, clear as day. You walked right up to my door and left this." I stared at the video, watching myself, wearing the bloodied wedding suit, moving with confidence I'd never possessed, placed the note and hair on her doorstep before walking away. The timestamp showed it was from last night, during the hours I couldn't remember. "I'm calling the police," Myung-suk said, her voice cold and final. "You murdered my son and staged it to look like suicide. You're going to prison for the rest of your life." "Your son tried to murder him first," Seungjae said sharply, stepping forward with a dangerous look in his eyes. That suicide note confesses to everything. The fake video, the conspiracy, pushing Ihyeon off a building. If you want to go to the police, we'll make sure they investigate every word of it. Myung-suk's face went white. "Well, you have no proof." "We have his confession," Raon interrupted, "written in his own hand. We have security footage showing Ihyeon's blood at the scene. We have witnesses who can testify to the fake video being played at the wedding. Do you really want us to open that investigation?" She faltered, fear flashing across her features, but her pride wouldn't let her back down completely. "This isn't over," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "I'll be back with lawyers. I'll destroy all of you." She turned toward the door, her hand reaching for the handle. That's when it happened. The mark above my heart flared white-hot, burning through my chest like someone had pressed a brand into my skin. My vision sharpened violently, colors bleeding brighter, edges cutting clearer. And then I felt him, Blaze, rising up from wherever he'd been hiding, taking control in less than a heartbeat. "Watch your back." The words came out of my mouth, but they weren't mine. The voice was colder, sharper, carrying a threat that made the air feel dangerous. Blaze straightened my posture, shifted my weight, transformed my entire presence into something predatory and lethal. Myung-suk froze, turning back slowly. Her eyes widened as she looked at me, really looked at me, and saw something that made the color drain from her face. "You should run," Blaze continued, his voice soft and deadly, "because the next time we meet, there won't be anyone here to stop me from finishing what your family started." The change must have been visible. The way he held my body, the expression on my face, the cold fire burning in my eyes. Myung-suk took one look and fled, practically running out the door like something was chasing her. Blaze watched her go with satisfaction, then turned slowly to face the twins. I was screaming inside, trying to push him back, trying to regain control, but he was too strong. All I could do was watch through my own eyes as Raon and Seungjae stared at me with expressions of pure shock. They'd suspected, they'd theorized, but now they were seeing it happen right in front of them. The complete transformation, the different person wearing my face. "Now do you believe me?" Blaze said, his voice cold and sharp as he looked between them. "I told you I was Ihyeon. I just never said I was the only one." The twins stood frozen, their eyes locked on my face with expressions that cycled through shock, horror, and something that looked almost like grief. I could feel Blaze could feel him enjoying their reactions, like he'd finally proven a point they'd refused to believe. "Who are you?" Raon asked, his voice carefully controlled despite the tension radiating through his shoulders. "My name is Blaze," he said, and hearing it spoken aloud made something inside me fracture. I was born the moment Ihyeon died on that pavement, created by the trauma, the death, the resurrection. I'm the part of him that survived what he couldn't handle. "That's not possible," Seungjae said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it?" Blaze tilted my head, studying them with cold amusement. "You brought him back from death with a forbidden bond you barely understood? Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences?" "The bond saved his life," Round said firmly. "Mara, the doctor confirmed he was healthy, whole." "The bond created me," Blaze interrupted, "and it condemned him to something far worse than a quick death." The twins exchanged a look, fear creeping into their expressions. "What are you talking about?" Seungjae demanded. Blaze smiled, and I felt the expression pull at my face like a mask that didn't quite fit. "The mate bond you used isn't the miracle you thought it was," he said quietly. "It's a bond with death and life. And you only knew half the story." "Explain," Rand ordered, his alpha authority bleeding through despite his obvious fear. "The myth says an alpha can pull a dying omega back from death by marking them over the heart," Blaze began, pacing slowly across the room. "What the myth doesn't mention is what happens after. When you mark someone who's already dead, you don't just bring them back, you split them. A life and death become two separate entities sharing the same body." My stomach would have dropped if I'd been in control of it. Two entities, life and death. That's what we were now. "I am death," Blaze continued, his voice soft and deadly. "And Ihyeon is life. We're two halves of the same person, born from your desperate attempt to defy the natural order. Then we'll find a way to merge you back together," Seungjae said quickly. "To make you whole again." "You can't." Blaze stopped pacing, turning to face them directly. "Because this bond only has one outcome. Death." The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to fall. "What does that mean?" Raon asked, though I could hear in his voice that he already suspected the answer. "It means when I finish taking revenge on everyone who tried to kill us, when I fulfill the life course of the one who was supposed to die, Ihyeon will die too. Permanently this time. No resurrections. No second chances." "No!" Seungjae's voice cracked. "That's not acceptable. We'll stop you from taking revenge. We'll—" "You can't stop me," Blaze said simply. "I exist to finish what was started. It's the only reason I'm here." That's his life course. And when I'm done, when justice has been served, the bond will complete itself and Ihyeon will die. Then we won't let you finish, Round said, his hands clenching into fists. We'll keep you suppressed. I will find a way to keep Ihyeon in control. Blaze laughed, the sound cold and mocking. You think you can cage death? You think you can stop the inevitable? He shook my head slowly. The bond is already killing him. Every day that passes, every time I take control, he gets weaker. Even if you somehow manage to stop the revenge, he'd still die. Just slower, more painfully. I wanted to scream, wanted to cry. He wanted to do anything except listen to him casually discuss my death like it was already decided. But I was trapped, forced to witness every word. This is your fault, Blaze continued, his voice turning sharp with accusation. You brought him back to life, which means he has to die twice. The first death was quick, merciful. This one will be drawn out, agonizing, and entirely because you couldn't let him go. The twins looked stricken, devastation written across their features. For it, we didn't know, Rayon whispered. We didn't know the bond would do this. Of course you didn't, Blaze said, his tone dripping with disdain. Do you know why the alpha bond myth is nearly extinct? Why almost no one uses it anymore, despite how powerful it is? They shook their heads. Because of the price of death, Blaze explained. Most alphas who knew the full truth refused to pay it. They let their omegas die rather than condemn them to die twice. But you two, now in your ignorance and desperation, doomed Ihyeon the moment you marked him. There has to be a way to fix this, Seungjae insisted, stepping forward with desperation, bleeding through every word. A way to break the bond, to save him. If there is, I don't know it, Blaze said. And I've searched through every memory Ihyeon has of your grandmother's stories, every whisper of the old myths. The bond is absolute. Once made, it can't be unmade. The twins looked at each other. And I saw something pass between them. Determination. Refusal to accept what they had been told. We'll find a way, Round said quietly, his voice carrying absolute conviction. We brought him back once. We'll find a way to keep him alive. Blaze studied them for a long moment, and I felt something shift in his presence. Not softness exactly, but maybe the tiniest crack in his cold certainty. If you manage to find a way, he said slowly, I would be happy to try it. But don't waste what little time he has left chasing impossible solutions. What are you saying? Seungjae asked warily. I'm saying love him while you can, Blaze said, and for the first time, his voice carried something other than mockery or cruelty. Cherish him. Make his remaining time worth living. Because I'm going to finish the revenge soon, and when I do, he'll be gone forever. How soon? Round demanded. Soon enough. Blaze moved toward the window, looking out at the city below. Myongsuk is the last one after that beta. Once she pays for what she did, the debt will be settled and the bond will complete itself. Then we'll protect her, Seungjae said immediately. We'll make sure you can't get to her. And condemn Ihyeon to a slower death? Blaze turned back to face them. Every day I don't finish this, he suffers. The bond eats away at him from the inside, burning through his life force to keep me alive. You think you're saving him by delaying the inevitable? But all you're doing is prolonging his agony. The twins stood in stunned silence, trapped between impossible choices. Let Blaze finish the revenge and lose Ihyeon immediately, or stop him and watch Ihyeon die slowly over weeks or months. There has to be another way, Rayon said, his voice shaking with emotion I'd never heard from him before. There has to be. Then find it, Blaze challenged. Search every medical text, every ancient myth, every forbidden ritual. If you discover a way to break this bond or stop the death, I'll try it. I'll do whatever it takes. You would? Seungjae asked, surprise evident in his tone. I'm not a monster, Blaze said quietly. I'm just death doing what death does. But I don't want him to die any more than you do. He deserves better than this. Better than what they did to him. Better than what you did to him. Before either twin could respond, I felt Blaze's control start to slip. The mark above my heart cooled, the burning sensation fading to a dull ache. He was retreating, pulling back into whatever depths he lived in when he wasn't in control. Remember what I said, Blaze's voice was already fading. Love him while you can. Make it count. Then darkness swallowed me, and when I opened my eyes again, I was back in control. I gasped, stumbling as my body suddenly felt like my own again. The twins rushed forward, catching me before I could fall, so their hands gentle despite the urgency in their movements. What happened? I asked, my voice hoarse and confused. Why are you looking at me like that? Ihyeon, Round said, his voice thick with emotion I couldn't interpret. We're not letting you die, Seungjae added, his jaw set with fierce determination. I don't know what you're talking about, I whispered, fear creeping through my chest at the devastation in their expressions. But the look in their eyes told me something terrible had just happened, something I couldn't remember. The twins exchanged a glance and I saw something pass between them, a decision being made without words. When they turned back to me, their expressions had shifted into something gentler, more determined. It's nothing you need to worry about right now, Round said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. We're going to figure everything out. But first, you need to rest. I just woke up, I protested weakly, though exhaustion was already pulling at the edges of my consciousness. Then sleep, Seungji said, guiding me back toward the bed with hands that trembled slightly. And when you wake up tomorrow, we're taking you out. Out? But Myeong-suk knows I'm here. The police might be looking for me. It's not safe. We'll make it safe, Ryan interrupted. You've been trapped in this penthouse since we brought you back. You deserve to see daylight, to breathe fresh air, to live instead of just surviving. The certainty in his voice left no room for argument. I let them tuck me into bed, let them turn off the lights, let sleep drag me under, despite the questions burning through my mind. When I woke the next morning, everything had changed. The twins were already dressed and waiting, their eyes tracking my movement the moment I opened mine. There was something different in the way they looked at me, something intense and almost desperate, like they were trying to memorize every detail of my face. Get dressed, Seungjae said, and already laying out clothes on the bed. We're going out. Where? I asked, sitting up slowly. Everywhere, Ron answered with a small smile. Nowhere. Anywhere you want. Today is yours. They took me to places I'd only ever seen in photos. A botanical garden filled with flowers I couldn't name, their colors so vibrant they hurt to look at. A quiet overlook where the entire city spread out below us like a painting. A small cafe tucked into a side street where no one recognized my face or cared about scandal. Brown bought me flowers, deep red roses that smelled like promises I wasn't sure I could keep. Seungjae held my hand as we walked, his grip firm and grounding, like he was afraid I might disappear if he let go. Why are you doing this? I asked as we sat on a bench overlooking the river, the afternoon sun warm on my face. Because you deserve it, Rowan said simply. Tabri, because you've spent your whole life taking care of other people and no one's ever taken care of you. That's not true, I protested, though even I could hear how weak the argument sounded. Name one person who put you first, Seungjae challenged gently. One person who loved you without wanting something in return. I opened my mouth to answer and found I couldn't. Every relationship I'd ever had was built on what I could give, not what I deserved to receive. My parents who needed my income. The patients who needed my care. Gichin, who needed a cover for his real life. Exactly, Round said quietly. So let us be the first. That evening, they took me to a rooftop restaurant so exclusive, I knew they'd pulled strings just to get a reservation. The view stretched across the entire city, lights beginning to twinkle as the sun set behind distant buildings. The table was private, tucked into a corner where we could see everything, but no one could see us. What tell us about you, Seungjae said after we'd ordered. Not the Omega who took care of our grandmother, not the person Gichin tried to destroy. Just you. Who were you before everything went wrong? The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me that before. No one had ever cared about who I was beyond what I could do for them. I wanted to open a care home, I said slowly, the words feeling strange after being locked away for so long. A small place for elderly people who couldn't afford the expensive facilities. Somewhere they could feel like family instead of patients. That's beautiful, Raon said, and the sincerity in his voice made my chest ache. It's stupid, I corrected, looking down at my hands. I could barely afford rent on my apartment. I was never going to save enough to actually do it. It's not stupid, Shungjai insisted, and it's not impossible either. Not anymore. I looked up at him, confused. What do you mean? We mean that when this is all over, when you're safe and the people who hurt you have paid for what they did, we'll help you build it, Raon said. Whatever you need, however much it costs, we'll make it happen. Tears burned behind my eyes. Why would you do that for me? The twins exchanged a look, and I saw something pass between them. Permission, maybe, or just shared certainty. Because we're in love with you, Raon said quietly. We have been since the first time we saw you reading to our grandmother when she couldn't sleep. You were so gentle with her, so patient, even though your shift had ended hours earlier. We couldn't look away. We watched you for months, Shungjai added, his voice low and honest. Followed you home to make sure you got there safely. Learned your routines, your favorite coffee shop, the park where you ate lunch. We know it sounds obsessive, and maybe it was, but we couldn't help it. You mattered to us before you even knew we existed. That's why you were at the wedding, I whispered, understanding finally clicking into place. You were watching me. We were, Raon admitted. And when you disappeared from that terrace, when we found you bleeding on the pavement, we couldn't let you go. We couldn't watch you die and do nothing. Even if it means I'm dying anyway. The words slipped out before I could stop them, revealing that somewhere deep down, and I knew something was very wrong with me. Their faces went pale. You're not dying, Shungjai said firmly. We're going to figure out what's happening with the blackouts and the voice. We're going to fix you. Promise? My voice came out small and broken. Promise, they said together. The next few days were the happiest I could remember. We existed in a bubble where the outside world didn't matter, where Myung-suk and the police and the scandal couldn't touch us. They cooked breakfast for me, terrible and burnt, but made with love. We watched old movies curled up on the couch, their arms around me like shields against everything bad. They kissed me like I was precious, touched me like I was sacred, whispered promises against my skin that I desperately wanted to believe. I felt myself falling for them, felt the bond between us deepening into something real and terrifying and beautiful all at once. They made me laugh. They made me feel safe. They made me believe, just for a moment, that I could have this, that I could be happy, that I could be loved without conditions or expectations. On the fifth night, exhaustion pulled at me harder than usual. We'd spent the day at an art museum, wandering through galleries while they explained pieces I didn't understand, and I pretended to care about anything except the way they looked at me. By the time we got home, I could barely keep my eyes open. Sleep, Raon said, kissing my forehead as Shungjai pulled the blankets up around me. We'll be right outside if you need anything. Thank you, I whispered, already halfway to unconscious. For everything. For making me feel like I matter. You do matter, Shungjai said softly. More than you know. I drifted off with their words warming my chest, feeling safer than I had in years. Protected, cherished, loved. I didn't know it would be the last peaceful sleep I'd ever have. In the darkness, something shifted. The mark above my heart flared hot, pulling me down deeper than sleep should go. I felt myself sinking, felt control being stripped away as someone else rose to the surface. Blaze opened my eyes in the darkness, a cold smile spreading across my face. He sat up slowly, careful not to make a sound, and whispered into the empty room. Time to finish this. When I woke the next morning, I knew immediately that something was wrong. My body felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything vital and left only the shell behind. The twins were already awake, sitting on either side of the bed, their eyes red and swollen like they'd been crying. What happened? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Instead of answering, Raon picked up a tablet and turned it toward me. The headline made my breath catch. Im Woo-chul Jin and Myung-suk No found dead in apparent murder-suicide. Below it was a video still, Myung-suk's face, tear-streaked and terrified, staring directly into a camera. Shungjai pressed play, and her voice filled the room, confessing everything. The fake video, the conspiracy to destroy me, the order to push me off that terrace. Every vicious, calculated detail spilled out in her shaking voice before the video cut to black. I'm vindicated, I whispered, staring at the screen. Everyone knows the truth now. Yes, Raon said quietly. Then why do you both look like someone died? The question came out before I could stop it, and the moment the words left my mouth, I understood. I did it, didn't I? I killed them. During the blackout. Not you, Shungjae said carefully. Blaze. The name hit me like a physical blow. Who? The other part of you, Rowan explained, his voice thick with emotion. The one who takes over when you can't remember. He told us everything 2 days ago while you were unconscious. Told you what? Fear crawled up my throat, cold and suffocating. They told me everything. About Blaze being born from my death. About the bond splitting me into life and death. About how the revenge was the only thing keeping me alive. And now that it was finished, I was going to die. Really die. Permanently. I listened to every word, my hands shaking, my chest tightening until I couldn't breathe. When they finished, silence filled the room like water, drowning us all. How long? I finally managed to ask. We don't know, Shungjae said, his voice breaking. Days, weeks, maybe months if we're lucky. No. The word came out as a sob. No, I just found you. I just started living. You can't tell me I have to die now. We're going to fix this, Rowan insisted, gripping my hand so tightly it hurt. We're going to find a way to break the bond, to save you. You can't. The certainty settled over me like ice. If there was a way, Blaze would have told you. He's gone now, isn't he? He finished what he came to do, and now he's just gone. Neither of them answered, but their faces told me everything I needed to know. I broke. I cried until my throat was raw, until my ribs ached from sobbing, until there were no tears left and I was just gasping for air between broken sounds. The twins held me through all of it, their own tears falling into my hair as they whispered promises they couldn't keep. Hale, I'm scared, I admitted when I could finally speak again. I'm so scared of dying. We know, Shungjae whispered. We're scared too. The deterioration started that same day. By evening, I could barely stand without help. By the next morning, pain radiated through my chest like fire, burning from the inside out. The mark above my heart pulsed constantly, each beat draining something essential from my body. The twins tried everything. And doctors who shook their heads and found nothing medically wrong. Experimental treatments that did nothing. Ancient rituals performed by people who claimed to know the old ways. Nothing worked. The bond couldn't be broken. Death was coming, slow and inevitable. I spent my days in bed, too weak to do anything except exist and hurt. The twins never left my side. They read to me, talked to me about anything and everything, held my hand through the waves of pain that left me gasping. One afternoon, when I was still strong enough to move with help, they drove me somewhere outside the city. I didn't have the energy to ask where until we stopped in front of a construction site. What is this? I asked, confused. Your dream, Round said softly, helping me out of the car. They walked me to a sign that read, Ihyeon Bak Memorial Care Home, opening spring 2026. I stared at it, unable to process what I was seeing. You built this. We're building it, Shungjae corrected. Fully funded. Staff already hired. Designed exactly the way you described it. A place where elderly people can feel like family instead of patients. The tears came again, but this time they were different. Grateful, heartbroken. I won't be here to see it open. You will, Rayon said fiercely. You're going to fight, and you're going to live long enough to welcome the first residents yourself. I wanted to believe him. I closed my eyes and prayed to whatever God might be listening. Please, just let me live long enough to see it. Let me know that my life meant something. The months that followed were agony. My body failed piece by piece. First my legs, then my arms, then everything except my ability to breathe and hurt. The twins cared for me with a tenderness that broke my heart every single day. They bathed me, fed me, held me through the nights when the pain was so bad I wished I could just let go. A year after Blaze disappeared, I woke to Round gently brushing my hair back from my face. Today's the day, he said softly. The care home opens in 2 hours. Joy and devastation hit me simultaneously. I'd made it. I'd lived long enough. Take me there, I whispered, my voice barely audible. We will, Shungjae promised, already moving to get the wheelchair. We've got everything ready. Medical equipment, oxygen, everything you need. You're going to see it. But as they started to lift me, my chest seized. In pain exploded through my body, so intense I couldn't even scream. My vision went white, then dark, then white again. I felt my heart stuttering, felt my lungs refusing to pull in air. No, Round's voice sounded far away. No, not yet. Please, not yet. Hold on, Shungjae begged, his hands shaking as he checked my pulse. Just a few more hours. You can do this. But I couldn't. I could feel it. The bond finally completing itself. Death claiming what had always belonged to it. My body was shutting down, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. I'm sorry, I whispered, using the last of my strength to meet their eyes. I tried. I wanted to see it so badly. We know, Rayon choked out, climbing onto the bed to hold me. We know you did. Thank you, I managed, my voice fading, for loving me, for making this year worth living, for giving me everything I never thought I'd have. We love you, Shungjae said, his tears falling onto my face. Daru will always love you. I know, I whispered. That's why I can let go. My vision was fading, darkness creeping in from the edges. I could hear them talking, begging, crying, but it all sounded distant now, peaceful almost. I thought about the care home opening without me, about elderly people finding family there, about my name living on in a place built from kindness. It wasn't enough. I wanted more time. I wanted to see it. I wanted to live, but wanting wasn't enough to keep me here. The last thing I felt was their hands holding mine, warm and solid and real. The last thing I knew was that I was loved, even if I'd never see the dream I longed for. The end. If Ihyeon's story broke your heart the way it broke ours, please hit that like button. He deserved to see his dream. He deserved more time. He deserved everything. Drop a comment and tell us, did the twins do the right thing bringing him back, or did they doom him the moment they marked him? Would you have chosen love for 1 year over never knowing it at all? And if you want more stories that will destroy you in the best way, stories about broken people finding love in impossible places, subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started. Ihyeon's care home opened without him, but his story doesn't have to be forgotten. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being here.